Hi, I know it's been a couple of weeks and now I'm back with a weekly update. I, first of all, did not read a ton of books in the last week because I was on vacation in Savannah, Georgia, but I did read some books the week before, so I'm here to talk about all of them. I am Amanda and you're watching the Reading and Writing Life. Okay, first, I always do announcements and I talk about any new books that I've gotten. And last time I showed you my Talisman book that I got from Stephen King, which is in the Dark Tower extended thing. But this is actually the next book that I'm reading in the Dark Tower extended reading world, and it's The Mist. I love that this is called a short story or a novella, not a short story, but it is 230 pages. That's like a book to me, but it's not a book to Stephen King. So anyway, I'm actually going to try to do 2 of his this month. This is the book, right? The next book. You see how big it is? So I'm going to try to do both of these this month. Not this week, but this month. Anyway, I got that. I'm going to go faster because I got another order. Well, not another order, but I made an order at Book Outlet. Everything was on super sale, like $1 or $2 each. So I'm going to quickly show you what these are. I know nothing about these. I did the category fantasy and I did the category sci-fi, and I literally just bought by the cover, based on the cover, or if it was an author that I had heard of. So first of all, I have 5 books here, 6 books that are part of a series, and this one, and they're not the first book in a series, so I'm going to have to get them. But this is Trial by Treason by Dave Duncan. This looks cool to me. I've got 2 books in the New World series, book 2 and 3, The Long Road and Sanctuary. So I've got to get book 1 in that. This is book 2. I'm pretty sure it's book 2, but it's called The God Peak by Patrick Hemstreet. These are by G. Michael Hops. I don't know how to say his name. Hop, I think. This is Flash Mob by Christopher Farnsworth, and it's book 2 of a duology. So this is the end of it. So I definitely want to get the first one so that I can keep that going. And then this is called Flame Bringer, and it's actually book 3. So I need to look for the rest of them. Anyway, those are the ones that were part of a series. These are ones that are just standalones or the first book in a series. So we have The Feed by Nick Clark Window. We have How Are You Going to Save Yourself by J.M. Holmes. We have The Cassandra by Sharma Shields. We have Snakeskins by Tim Major. This looks so cool to me. Black Mad Wheel by Josh Mallerman. I know his name. I've not read anything by him. And then we have 3 hardcovers. This is The God Game by Danny Toby. I think this looks really cool too, the cover. The Storm King by Brendan Duffy. And The Women's War by Jenna Glass. My children were just making fun of me today because our library is having a sale this weekend. And I said, oh, we need to go to the library sale. And my kids were like, you just bought a bookshelf and you've already filled it up. So you don't need to buy more books. Which is funny, I probably don't. But I can't. I did give myself a ban on buying new books, but I am letting myself buy books that are on sale. So anyway, I don't know if that's helping much because I went from having like 20 books total in my library to, we'll just say, a lot more than 20. So those are all the announcements, all the new books I've gotten. Let me know if you've read any of those, if you've heard about them. Like I said, I don't know anything about them. A lot of them were cover buys. Okay, now let's talk about new subscribers. I have Ben the Overlord and Jim's Books Reading and Stuff. So thank you for subscribing, and thank you everybody who has subscribed. We are just moving right along here, and I'm really liking how many comments that I'm getting and the people that I'm able to talk to over on Discord and over here. So thank you for being a subscriber. Now, the books that I finished. So I don't own any of these like in my hands, so I'm not going to hold them up. They'll pop up on the screen. I will scoot this way. There we go. Okay, so I read 4 fantasy books. I read A Court of Thorn and Roses. This is by Sarah J. Maas. It's not my first Sarah J. Maas book, but this is one that people have talked about, either good or bad. And yeah, I finished it. I thought that it was decent. Like, it was okay. I have a hard time with first person books, and a lot of the books that I read now are first person because a lot of fantasy books are first person. But I thought that it was okay. It was good enough, we will say. The next fantasy book was Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. This was my subscriber recommendation pick. So I just have people, anytime somebody puts a recommendation in the comments, or anytime people are like, hey, you should read this book, because they know that I have a channel, I put it in a wheel, and once a month I spin, and that's what I do. This book was really cute. Like, it was about a small town, and this woman kind of stayed in the small town even though her sister moved away. She stayed there, and she takes care of the house and the garden, and she's kind of like very private and very quiet. And they have an apple tree in the backyard that's kind of like, well, if you eat an apple from the apple tree, it shows you something that's going to happen in your future. But they try not to let people eat the apples because it's not only good things. Like, it shows you, some people see when they die or how they die or whatever. So they try not to let people eat the apples. But anyway, she gets a new neighbor that moves in next door, and he's kind of hinting that he likes her. And she's like, no thanks. I would like to stay here and work my garden and do this. And then her sister ends up escaping from an abusive relationship, and she comes back home with her daughter in tow, and her daughter seems to have the same gift that the main character does, and it was really cute. It was a nice, like, homecoming kind of book, but it did have some mysteries in there and some fantasy elements. I really liked it. So whoever recommended Garden Spells, I don't know who you were, but I really liked it. Thank you. The next fantasy book that I read is Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer. This came out in the end of July, near the end. This is an indie published book, and it is so long. First of all, 900 and something pages. However, it was so good. It may have been the best book that I read in July. It was definitely the best book that I read this week, but maybe the best book that I've read in July. I liked it so much. I mean, with all the driving that I did in the last week, I listened to it on audio and finished it, but it has a little boy, well, I guess little, he's like 11-ish or 12. And it mostly revolves around him and the things that kind of happened to him. And it feels almost like a trilogy all shoved into one giant, massive 900-page book. I mean, it could be. If you had 300 and something page books, you could have 3 of them. It is an epic tale of this boy discovering who he is and finding out just how special he actually is, and giving up so much because he just wants a friend. He's always been weird and the outcast, and he just wants a friend, and he ends up just with the best friend, and a friend group that is so cute, and I love them all, and it was just such a good book. I loved it. The final fantasy book that I read, Sinlin Ascends. I squeezed this in. Technically, I did not read it in July. I read it at the beginning of August because I was supposed to be doing it. Well, I was supposed to be reading it in August with Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative and some other people on her Discord channel. And I didn't have another audiobook. It was July the 31st at night, and I finished an audiobook, and I didn't have another one. And I was like, I'm going to start Sinlin Ascends. And so I started it on the 31st, and I finished it the next day on August 1st. So everybody else is like, oh, I'm getting started on Sinlin. And I was like, I finished it already. Anyway, it was really good. I'm not going to go into a ton of details. I feel like Sinlin Ascends gets talked about all over the place. But if you don't know what it is the series called The Books of Babel. I want to call it Babel because I listened to it on audio. I would have said Babel. But the audio guy pronounced it Babel, but also he had a British accent, so maybe it's pronounced Babel for me, and it's pronounced Babel if you're British. I don't know at all. However, it is a giant tower, and he wants to go there. Thomas Sinlin has been obsessed with it his whole life. He's read about the tower, everything that he could find about it. He is a teacher in a little small town, and he and his wife go there on their honeymoon. And he's so excited about it, and he gets there, and he's like, oh, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And so he and his wife are just off the boat. They're exploring around the base of the tower, and all of a sudden he turns around and she's gone. That's not technically true. She doesn't just vanish. She says, I'm going to go over here and look at this. And he's like, okay, I'll be here and I'll meet you back here. And she makes a joke and she's like, I'll meet you at the top of the tower. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. And then she walks off to go do whatever she's going to do, and he never sees her. So this book takes place over a series of months, just this one book. And there are going to be 4 books in this series. So he is searching for his wife, and that means he's going up the levels of the tower as he searches for his wife. It is so good, so unique, and there are situations that I just was like, wow, I did not see that going there. I didn't see that happening or it working out like that, but it was really good. Okay, I read one general fiction book called At Home in Mitford. So I said that I went to South Carolina. Well, I said that I went to Savannah, which is in Georgia, but we took a little trip to visit some friends in South Carolina, and one of them suggested this book because she said it was written about a town in North Carolina, but just that's like a little tiny town, kind of like the town she lived in South Carolina. So I was like, okay, we'll listen to it. My mother and I are riding in a car for hours and hours. And so we put this book in. And we didn't know anything to expect about it, except she said it was about a small town. And so we were like, okay, let's put it in. Well, it is told from the point of view, or not the point of view, but our main character is Father Tim, who he is an Episcopal priest, and he works in this little town. And it's really just about him and all the people that live in that town. So if you're plot driven, I would not suggest you read this book. Also, if you're not wanting any kind of religious stuff, specifically Christianity stuff, I would probably avoid this book, as it is predominantly about a minister. So it has a lot of scripture stuff in it. It has a lot of Bible references and references to Christianity and Christian ideals and all that kind of stuff. So if that doesn't appeal to you, don't read it. However, if you like those things and you're a character-driven reader, this book, you might really like it. I thought that it had some really cute moments. I thought that it had some moments, but I liked it a lot. And so it was a nice way to pass the time in the car, just learning about this little town and this little community. And it had a couple of little mysteries in there to just make it a little bit more interesting and to give it a little more of a plot. I liked it though. Okay, then I have 3 horror books. I finally finished The Ones That Got Away by Stephen Graham Jones. This took all month because it's a compilation of short stories, and I was just reading them one story at a time. I don't even know what to say. It is a compilation of short stories. I will say this. There's one story in there at the very beginning. It's called Father, Son, and Holy Rabbit. I think that might be my favorite story. However, what was funny is at the end, Stephen Graham Jones talks about each one of the stories and where he was when he wrote it or what he was thinking about when he wrote it, which I love reading those. I think that they give you so much more insight in what you've just read when you have those little snippets or little peeks inside the author's head to know what they were thinking. So in this one, there is a father and son trapped out in the snow, and they are lost in the snow. That's all you need to know that what he said about this was that years after he had written that story, he got lost in the woods with his dad. Actually, he got separated from his dad, and he was lost, and his dad was looking for him. And he said, as I was laying there thinking, I am living one of my stories, he thought, why didn't I write about unicorns and rainbows? Why do I write scary stories? And I thought that was so funny. It just made me laugh. So anyway, I definitely recommend this book. I thought that it was great. I read an indie published book that was part of the Indie Accords that I was doing in July called Goddess of Filth. This is, I don't know what I think about it. It's definitely a short story, or definitely a short story, even maybe a short novella, but this is about a group of friends in San Antonio, Texas, who decide to do a fake seance, like they do their own, whatever kind of thing they think means seance. They just make it up as they go. And they accidentally call this, I'm not going to say demon because she's not really a demon, but they call this entity, and she comes into one of the girls. And it's just kind of gross, like, but also at the same time, I think the author is trying to make a commentary in that we can accept, women kind of need to accept who they are and what they like and what they want without having to put the societal pressures on them from one thing, having to do with one thing or another, like bodies or just gender conformity things. And so I think that's what she was trying to make, like a larger point about it, but I didn't really like it very much. Which was kind of sad because I paid $10 for the Kindle book of that. So anyway, it's fine. Then the last book that I read, the last horror book that I read was called The Gamble. This is not really a horror book. It's just dystopian, but it was listed under the horror, so I put it under there. This one I liked. This is another indie book that was part of the Indie Accords. There is a girl who lives underground. The underground city, everybody lives underground, all the humans do. They monitor the top side, they monitor the planet and see when it is safe for them to come back out, because there was a nuclear holocaust and everything kind of got destroyed in the nuclear fallout. And so they're underground, and the gamble is that every year they tally up the babies that were born, they subtract the number of people who just died, and then whatever number is left over, they draw that many numbers out, and all of those people get sent to the gas chamber. So it's a gamble as to whether or not your number is going to get called. Well, somebody really close to her had their number called, and she was like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done being down here underground. I will go up top and I will let the radiation or whatever is up there kill me, whatever's wrong with the air. I will just let it kill me and I will be done, because I don't want to be a part of this gamble. I'm tired of being this. And so she finds a way to get out, and she just discovers that things are not the way she's always been told that they were. And so I thought that it was really good. I liked it. It kind of got draggy in some parts, but overall I thought it was a really good book. Finally, the last book that I read is Murder in G Major by Alexia Gordon, and this is about Gethsemane Brown. I think her name is Brown. I know it's Gethsemane. It's her first name. She has just recently moved to Ireland, and she's a musician, and she is being hired to teach this children's orchestra to get ready to compete in like a yearly competition they have, and they never win it. And so she's like, we're going to do better and we're going to win it. And so she thinks she's there to do that, but she moves into this house of another famous musician that she really liked when she was younger. And his ghost is there. And he's like, hey, by the way, I didn't kill my wife and then kill myself like everybody thinks happened. So I'm going to need you to figure out what happened. Not really. He says, I'm going to need you to get the police to open the investigation again. He doesn't really want her to solve it, but he wants her to get the police to be like, okay, maybe this isn't as cut and dried as we thought it was. And so she ends up getting sucked into the whole thing. And we learned about this little town that she's living in at the same time that we're solving this like long ago mystery that they thought was solved but never actually was. And so I thought that it was really good. It's a series where she's going to be doing these mysteries as we're getting to know this little town in Ireland. So I like that. I like the little town and I like the mysteries at the same time. So I'm excited to keep going with her books. And that's it. I finished those 9 books in the last 2 weeks, and what I'm reading now. We're going to go through these quickly because when I finish reading them, of course, I will discuss them. I am reading The Wolf by Leo Carew. I was supposed to read this in July. It's one of my carryover books. So is The Patience of a Dead Man by Michael Clark. I am so sad that I'm not finished with this book. And honestly, it's because I'm scared. Y'all, I'm on page 2 and I'm scared to read it. I'm going to read it. I don't know why I'm being scared. Then we have The Beautiful Country and the Middle Kingdom. I'm still reading this, and here's what I've decided to do. This is a very, very long nonfiction book about the United States and China, all the way from the Revolutionary War in America through to today. And so I'm going to be taking my time with this, and I will just finish it when I finish it. So I'm working on that right now. I am reading Chew, Volume 2, the graphic novel, after I finish the first volume. And I'm reading Stormfront, which is by Jim Butcher, and the first book in the Dresden Files. And I'm really liking it. I'm over halfway done now, and I'm really liking it. Okay, next books that I will be reading. When I finish these, when I finish Stormfront, that's my audiobook. When I finish that, I'm going to be reading Billy Summers by Stephen King. It's the newest Stephen King book. It literally just came out on August 3rd. So I'm going to be reading that as soon as I finish Stormfront, which should be today, and I should be able to start Billy Summers as soon as I'm done. Then I have a ton of graphic novels. You can kind of see them on this stack right here. They all came from my library. They're all the ones, if you saw my August TBR, they're all the ones from NPR that was on the NPR list. They had them all at my library. I went and picked them all up. And so I'm going to be reading those. I'm reading Chew first. When I finish that, I'm going to pick up one of those and just go down the list of graphic novels. I'm so excited about that. Then I'm going to be reading Breaking the Lore by Andy Redsmith. This I don't know anything about. I got it as an ARC from NetGalley, and it's on audio as well. So when I finish Billy Summers, that will be my next audiobook. So that is all for today. I know that I talked for a long time about the books that I finished, but I kind of wanted you to know about the books, whether or not you want to read them. I have this dilemma where I don't want to make a video for every single book. I mean, we just discussed the fact that in the last 2 weeks I've read 8 books. So I cannot do one video for every single book that I read. So I think instead of that, I'm going to keep doing it this way. So I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week in the next video. Bye, guys.